At exactly 4:42 a.m., under a sky choked with winter fog, a column of North Korean armored beasts rumbled across the frozen border road. Steel tracks ground against ice, sending echoes into the darkness, a show of brute force that Pyongyang believed would shatter Ukraine's defenses in one decisive thrust. But what no one outside a handful of Ukrainian command bunkers knew was that this entire advance had been anticipated for weeks. Hidden sensors, satellite feeds, and whispers from intelligence operatives had mapped every tank, every fuel truck, every support vehicle, and at the moment the lead vehicle crossed into the kill zone, the trap slammed shut with a precision that stunned even Allied observers. How did Ukraine know exactly when and where to strike? And why did this unstoppable convoy collapse in less than 40 minutes? By 5:00 a.m., the mist along the border had thinned just enough for Ukrainian reconnaissance drones to track the convoy's advance in real time. The armored column stretched for nearly 2 miles, heavy T-62 second at the front, newly modified T-72 second in the middle, and fuel carriers tucked between. Inside Ukraine's Forward Operations Center, commanders whispered over encrypted channels, their eyes locked on live satellite feeds. Every move was measured, every second counted. The convoy had to be drawn deeper, far enough that retreat was impossible. Yet the stakes were brutal. Misjudge the moment, and those tanks could punch straight through to key supply hubs. Would Ukraine's high-risk patience pay off, or would they wait one heartbeat too long? At precisely 5:20 a.m., the lead North Korean T-62 crested a small ridge and rolled into the shallow valley that Ukrainian planners had designated as the furnace. The valley floor was deceptively open, a perfect corridor for armor, but its flanks were studded with camouflaged anti-tank teams dug in for weeks and connected to a layered kill chain that reached from the front line to deep in Kyiv's strategic command. Phase 1, the bait. The North Koreans advanced in classic Soviet-style formation, a spearhead of main battle tanks, infantry fighting vehicles in staggered formation, and logistical trucks trailing in the rear. Overhead, a pair of Mi-24 attack helicopters scanned the ridgelines, their rotors thumping low against the frozen air. What they could not see, what they had no idea existed, were the silent ghost drones hovering high above, transmitting infrared images to an underground Ukrainian command post 20 kilometers away. The moment the convoy's midpoint entered the valley, Ukrainian field commanders received a single chilling order from General Mikhailo Horbenko: lock the gates. Phase 2. The net tightens. At 5:29 a.m., the first stage of the trap was sprung. A coordinated barrage of American-supplied M982 Excalibur precision artillery shells arced in from 30 kilometers out, detonating on the ridge behind the convoy. These strikes were not aimed to destroy tanks outright. They were designed to crater the narrow road and block retreat. Shrapnel tore into the trailing fuel carriers, igniting a wall of fire that cut off the rear guard. Almost instantly, Javelin anti-tank teams, positioned on both valley flanks, opened fire in sequence, their launch signatures masked by electronic jamming. The first volley targeted the lead tanks, punching through their frontal armor. Within seconds, the convoy was trapped, front blocked, rear ablaze. Phase 3. Air power unleashed. At 5:37 a.m., the second wave began. Bayraktar TB2 drones, invisible in the morning haze, descended to low altitude, dropping MAML precision-guided munitions onto clustered armored vehicles. The explosions were methodical, almost surgical, picking off command vehicles and artillery escorts. The North Korean column tried to respond. Tank turrets swung toward the ridges. Autocannons barked at phantom targets, and their 2 Mi-24 helicopters banked hard to engage Ukrainian positions. But this was where the trap deepened. Hidden in the tree line were 2 NATO-supplied NASAMS air defense launchers. Their AIM, 120 missiles streaked skyward, turning both helicopters into fireballs before they had a chance to unleash their rockets. Phase 4. Psychological pressure. By 5:42 a.m., the battlefield was a nightmare of black smoke and burning steel. The trapped crews were desperate, trying to maneuver in the narrow valley as Ukrainian artillery shifted fire to target escape routes. Over open channels, Ukrainian PSYOPs officers broadcast taunting messages in Korean, warning the crews that resistance was useless, a move designed not just to demoralize, but to sow confusion about command authority within the convoy. The decision-making chain on the North Korean side began to collapse. Some tank commanders broke formation and attempted to drive cross-country up the valley's steep slopes, only to hit concealed minefields that had been buried weeks before. Every desperate maneuver only made the trap tighter. Phase 5. The close-in kill. At 5:51 a.m., General Horbenko gave the final clearance for close-quarters engagement. From hidden revetments, Ukrainian BTR-4E infantry fighting vehicles surged forward, their 30mm cannons raking the remaining mobile armor. Meanwhile, squads equipped with NLAW launchers moved in to finish off the immobilized tanks one by one. The speed of the collapse stunned even veteran NATO observers watching the feed from Brussels. What was expected to be a prolonged slugging match had turned into a 30-minute rout. In just over 25 minutes, the North Korean convoy, a symbol of Allied defiance against Ukraine, had been reduced to twisted metal and abandoned hulls. Why it worked? This was not luck. It was doctrine, discipline, and data. The entire operation had been rehearsed multiple times using simulations run jointly with NATO advisors. The Furnace Valley was chosen for its topography, pre-sighted artillery coordinates, and natural choke points. The integration of air defense, electronic warfare, and ground-based anti-tank fire was a masterclass in layered defense. The very kind of operation Western military academies study but rarely see executed so flawlessly in the field. As one NATO analyst watching in real time remarked, "This was not just a victory. This was a signal, and every adversary watching has heard it loud and clear." But here is the lingering question for every strategist, every armchair general watching this unfold. Was this surgical trap worth the risk of letting such a massive armored column penetrate so deep into Ukrainian territory? Could the same gamble work against a more technologically advanced adversary? Comment below, do you believe Ukraine's patience in letting the convoy enter was the key to total victory? Or was it a dangerous gamble that could have backfired spectacularly? By 6:10 a.m., the echoes of battle in the Furnace Valley had begun to fade. But the real war, the war of perception, was just beginning. In Kyiv, the Ministry of Defense's media operations team was already cutting together drone footage of the engagement. Every frame was carefully selected. Burning armor against the snow, black smoke curling into the pale sky, Ukrainian troops moving with disciplined precision. Within 2 hours, those images would dominate global news cycles. Phase 6. Information warfare. Even as recovery teams moved in to secure surviving equipment, Ukrainian cyber units were at work. They intercepted and jammed North Korean field communications, then injected false battlefield reports into enemy channels, creating the illusion that a much larger Ukrainian counteroffensive was underway. This was psychological warfare on a scale rarely seen, designed to shake not just the tank crews still alive, but the planners hundreds of miles away in Pyongyang. Internationally, the optics were devastating for North Korea. Pyongyang had framed this deployment as a solidarity strike force, sent to show that Ukraine could be broken by sheer weight of armor. Instead, in less than an hour, that image was shattered. NATO briefings the next morning quietly pointed to the operation as a proof of concept for layered, multi-domain defense against massed armor. Phase 7. Strategic exploitation. The destruction of the convoy was more than a tactical win, it was an opening. Ukraine's armored brigades, pre-positioned for a follow-up thrust, began moving toward lightly defended sections of the front. By 6:30 a.m., reconnaissance drones had confirmed what commanders had hoped: enemy lines on the adjacent sector were thin, their reserves still pinned by the false reports of Ukrainian reinforcements. With that window open, the 92nd Mechanized Brigade advanced rapidly, taking control of 2 small but strategically vital villages. These were not large population centers, but their road junctions provided key access routes for future offensives. Every kilometer gained in those hours made the enemy's logistics more fragile. Phase 8. Political ramifications. In Seoul, intelligence analysts were stunned by the scale of the loss. In Pyongyang, state media blacked out coverage of the operation entirely, instead broadcasting agricultural programs and patriotic songs. But international military attachés quickly confirmed the truth. More than 50 armored vehicles lost, along with critical fuel supplies and command assets. The ripple effect reached Beijing and Moscow. Both capitals had been watching the North Korean convoy closely. viewing it as a litmus test for how quickly Ukraine's defenses could adapt to an unconventional armored thrust. Instead, what they saw was a NATO-backed military capable of absorbing the shock of a heavy mechanized assault and turning it into a decisive ambush. Phase 9. Civilian Awareness. By mid-morning, the streets of Kyiv buzzed with the news. On large public screens in Maidan Nezalezhnosti, images from the operation looped between weather updates and public service announcements. Soldiers in uniform became instant symbols of resilience. Their faces splashed across social media with captions like, "The valley that swallowed steel." For civilians in border regions, the victory brought temporary relief, but also a deeper understanding of the war's stakes. People now knew that even if enemy forces crossed into Ukrainian territory, the defenders had the capability to strike back with surgical precision. But the very fact that such a large convoy had reached that deep, raised, uncomfortable questions, could the same happen again, under less favorable conditions? Phase 10, NATO's calculated silence. Perhaps most intriguing was NATO's official response, or rather, its lack of one. No formal statement claimed involvement, but the fingerprints of Western technology were all over the battlefield. The Excalibur artillery rounds, the NASAMS intercepts, the encrypted satellite feeds. In closed-door sessions in Brussels, senior commanders dissected the engagement, noting how seamlessly Ukrainian forces had integrated NATO systems without direct foreign personnel in the field. It was a silent but powerful message to any nation contemplating similar armored tests of Ukraine's lines. Such a gamble could be met with overwhelming, integrated force, even without NATO boots on the ground. But here's the question that military minds across the globe are now asking. Was this lightning-fast annihilation the product of genius planning? Or did Ukraine simply get lucky that the convoy's tactics were decades out of date? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was it superior doctrine, advanced technology, or both that turned the furnace into a one-sided slaughter? By 7:04 a.m., Ukrainian commanders were already shifting assets toward their newly captured road junctions. The Furnace Valley was secured, salvage crews were cataloging captured equipment, and morale was surging. But then, without warning, the battle space changed. The hidden counterplay. It began as a flicker on the electronic warfare consoles, a pattern of interference that didn't match any known Russian or North Korean jamming profile. Within minutes, Ukrainian drones over the valley began losing their data links, their video feeds freezing mid-frame. Simultaneously, encrypted channels carrying targeting data to the artillery units filled with bursts of static. Unknown to the Ukrainians, the North Korean convoy had not been alone. Nearly 30 kilometers to the east, concealed in forested terrain, a mobile North Korean electronic warfare detachment had been lying in wait. Its mission: activate only if the convoy was destroyed, to disrupt Ukrainian command and slow any follow-up offensive. The sky turns hostile. At 7:20 a.m., the second surprise unfolded. From beyond radar range, a flight of 4 North Korean KN-23 short-range ballistic missiles launched from mobile trucks hidden just over the border. Their flight time was under 3 minutes. 2 detonated over the valley with high-explosive fragmentation warheads, targeting Ukrainian recovery crews. The other 2 struck at suspected artillery positions identified by the convoy's forward observers before they were neutralized. While damage was limited thanks to pre-battle dispersal orders, the psychological impact was immediate. Ukrainian troops who had been celebrating minutes earlier now found themselves diving for cover under fresh explosions. A foreign hand? Signals intelligence units monitoring the electronic attack detected anomalies, suggesting outside assistance frequencies and encryption patterns consistent with systems used by another regional power. While no government would admit involvement, the implication was clear. Ukraine might have been pulled into a broader technological contest, one where North Korean armor was merely the opening move. Adaptive response. Despite the disruption, Ukrainian field leadership moved quickly. Commanders shifted to backup communication systems hardened, line-of-sight radio relays immune to the jamming. Drone control reverted to pre-programmed flight paths, allowing aerial assets to return to base even without live feeds. Counter-battery radar located the ballistic missile launchers, and HIMARS units prepared to respond. By 7:41 a.m., the mobile EW detachment was under long-range rocket fire, its position compromised by a combination of thermal imaging from NATO satellites and old-fashioned human intelligence from local partisans. Why this mattered? The furnace had been a tactical masterpiece, but this sudden counterstroke was a reminder. In modern warfare, victory is never final. Annihilating an armored column does not end the threat. It may trigger hidden layers of escalation that test every system in place. So now we must ask, was Ukraine's rapid recovery from this electronic and missile strike proof of an unshakable command structure? Or did they simply survive because the enemy's second wave was too small to finish the job? The engagement in the Furnace Valley, followed by the unexpected electronic warfare and missile counterstrike, offered a rare, layered case study in 21st century combat. It was a clash not just of armor and firepower, but of doctrine, adaptation, and alliance-backed technology. From a strategic standpoint, Ukraine's decision to let the North Korean convoy penetrate deep into prepared terrain demonstrated an advanced understanding of defensive-offensive integration, the art of turning enemy momentum into a liability. The choice carried enormous risk. Had the convoy broken through before the trap was sprung, critical supply hubs could have been threatened. Yet the payoff was undeniable, a textbook annihilation of a mechanized column in under 40 minutes. However, the electronic warfare counterstroke proved a sobering reality check. In modern battlefields, even a crushing tactical victory can be undermined by second-layer attacks that target the nervous system of a military: communications, targeting, and coordination. Here, Ukraine's resilience rested on two pillars: redundancy in command and control systems, and pre-planned responses for satellite and drone outages. These measures, developed with NATO advisory input, prevented the counterstrike from paralyzing the follow-up offensive. Politically, the battle sent shockwaves far beyond the front line. North Korea's loss weakened its image as a reliable auxiliary force to Russia, while NATO's silent fingerprints on the operation reinforced its reputation as the world's most integrated defense network. The absence of a public NATO victory lap was deliberate. The alliance preferred to let the operation speak for itself, a quiet deterrent to any nation considering similar probes. Economically, the destruction of the convoy and the seizure of surviving equipment provided both material and intelligence windfalls. Engineers could now study North Korean armor modifications up close, while intelligence analysts dissected the electronic warfare methods used in the counterstroke. But the most significant consequence was psychological. For Ukraine's people and military, it reinforced confidence in their ability to win not just through sheer resistance, but through calculated, high-tech precision. For adversaries, it was a warning. Even with foreign-supplied heavy armor and hidden second-wave tactics, breaking Ukraine's defenses would demand far more than brute force. Do you believe Ukraine's restraint and trap doctrine is a sustainable model for future battles? Or is it a one-off gamble that worked only because of specific conditions? Let us know in the comments. Your perspective fuels the deeper analysis we deliver here. The Furnace Valley will be remembered not only for the smoking wreckage it left behind, but for what it revealed, that in the crucible of modern war, patience, precision, and preparation can outmatch brute force. Ukraine's decision to wait, to lure, to close the gates only when the enemy was too deep to escape will be studied in war colleges for years. But this was no Hollywood ending. It was a reminder that victory is always provisional. The destruction of the North Korean armored convoy was a tactical masterpiece. Yet the follow-on electronic warfare and missile strike proved that the battlefield does not sleep after the first triumph. The enemy adapts, retaliates, and tests every weakness. Ukraine's ability to absorb that second blow without losing momentum was perhaps the greater story proof that a resilient command structure, bolstered by allied technology and doctrine, can weather even the most abrupt reversals. For NATO, the lesson was equally clear. When local forces are properly equipped, trained, and trusted to execute, they can deliver decisive results without direct foreign boots on the ground. The layered defense artillery, drones, anti-tank teams, air defense, electronic countermeasures worked because it was integrated, not improvised. Strength lay not in one weapon, but in the orchestra of many. For Ukraine's civilians, the images of burning steel under a cold morning sky were more than propaganda. They were proof that sovereignty can be defended, that even when the enemy crosses the threshold, there is a plan, a trap, and the will to spring it. Yet they were also a sober reminder that this war is far from over, that every day brings the possibility of new escalations, new twists, new valleys to defend. And for those watching from afar in Washington, in Brussels, in capitals where decisions of aid and policy are made, the operation underscored a truth that strategists have always known. Peace is not the absence of threat. It is the mastery of readiness. The cost of this engagement will be tallied in destroyed armor, expended munitions, and long hours in command bunkers. But its value will be measured in deterrence, in the pause it forces upon any adversary calculating the next move. History will remember the furnace not as a place of blind destruction, but as a lesson that strength deters chaos, and that the surest path to peace is the power to prevent war before it begins. So now, I turn to you. Do you believe such high-risk, high-reward operations are the future of warfare? Or should nations focus on less aggressive, more defensive doctrines? Share your view in the comments. Stay informed, stay engaged, subscribe now, because history is being written and we must pay attention.